All right, folks. Hello. Welcome back to Get Writ Live. Hanging out. This is Dr. Shivener. Hope everyone's doing well. So today, we will be talking about writing with sound here on the stream for a bit. And the real purpose is to do just that. Think about ways in which, we can work with sound in a variety of capacities. It's for the purposes of accentuating an argument that may be, sort of needing some signal boost, if you will, with essay writings and things like that. We'll be looking at that sense, and we'll work through some practical examples about how to get there by working in the writing space and then moving it to a sound platform. So we'll look at something called a sound trap a little bit later on. And really kind of ending with some additional resources. So, really just if you think about the idea of sound in your writing, I mean, we do a lot of read-throughs when we're proofreading, right? We might just be sort of reading silently in our head, listening to our voice. But what is it like if you just talk out your writing, and in these kind of low stakes ways of working with sound, you might realize some pretty interesting things about your phrasing and so forth. So it could be good on the copy editing level. It can also be good on doing some work that sort of acknowledges both the power of written texts and essays, as well as, how they are accentuated by music, effects, things like that. All right, so and let me know how you're doing if you're tuning in and things like that. Just want to give you a couple previews as always. So and I'll end it on this as well. So today we're starting the November kind of series up until the end of the year. So we've got about 5 more sessions here. Couple that are coming up I want to call your attention to. So today, writing with sound. Next week, we'll talk about writing with video, and then self-care in the writing process, and then moving writing from the page to the web. So if you want to think a little bit about web design, and then finally with some cozy vibes and winter writing prompts. And I thought last week worked really well for us. In terms of working with those prompts and so forth. We had a couple errors and so forth that happened along the way with things breaking down and stuff like that. But let's hope that doesn't happen again with these kind of programs. And hello to Dia. Thanks for saying hello as well. Hope you're doing well. All right, so that's the preview of what's coming up. And then also, just a reminder, we always have one-on-one appointments with the Writing Center, which is really instrumental in sponsoring the stream. And I'm doing one-on-one appointments on Thursdays from 10:30 to 2:30. So if you've not signed up, you can simply click on this link, and it'll take you to various live appointments. They also have asynchronous ways of doing it, online paper submissions. You can get expert feedback within 24 hours. So lots of things you can do even when you're working at a distance. And really, most of the sessions I do are pretty seamless online, just like these streams are as well. So I quite enjoy it. Okay, let's talk about a few things. Now, I teach a lot of times, in these upper level classes, ways in which you can think about sound in relation to writing, video in relation to writing, and then web forms in relation to writing. So this is a way of me kind of replicating in some ways the work I do in my classroom, make it more accessible to those who may not be taking classes within the professional writing major. So why should we write with sound? That's the first thing that I want to sort of put out to everyone. Why the audio essay? Really, if I'm assigning something like that to you, or wanting to do something in a class or an assignment where I'm saying this has to be a transcript and you have to do some kind of narration in the form of, let's say, a podcast. Why do we do that kind of stuff in this field of writing studies, and why I'm here talking about it now? Well, from a rhetorical point of view, a writer more or less now is enacting what they often call multiliteracies. A number of scholars have really taken up this idea in relation to the available means of persuasion. So if you look at authors such as Adam Banks, Jim Rodolfo, Jody Shipka, these are ways of getting at the available means of persuasion. Sound is one way toward that, using your voice in addition to the text you're writing to formulate a really interesting and persuasive argument. And lately there have been more arguments and ideas called sound writing, and relating that in a way to the writing process. So Kyle Stedman and Courtney Danforth and Michael Ferris have talked about this a bit. They've argued that sound writing is a chance to use the available means of sound recording, collecting, and editing to make something new. And I added in connection to writing, because most of this is taught in a writing classroom. And again, we're starting oftentimes with a transcript or some kind of essay and then transforming that into an audio piece. So you can read more on that as well if you're interested. But they have a collection called Amplifying Sound Writing that's coming out pretty soon. So the term is pretty loose on purpose, sound writing that is. It's this idea of making creative uses of music, silence, sound effects, and sound interaction, and voice. We talk about voice a lot already in relation to writing, so your tone might be interesting or off. You might hear in sort of feedback, or that we go for a house voice style, right, which is sort of what you hear in magazines. So these kind of metaphors of sound are already existent in writing situations, and sound writing just makes more explicit use of those, moves beyond the metaphor to the actual practice. I was also wondering if anyone has heard this idea of A.D. Carson's record, which is called I Used to Love to Dream. And it came out in 2020. It's really interesting because it's the first ever peer-reviewed rap album. And it just further justifies the use of sound and argumentation. So, A.D. Carson was writing these lyrics throughout, and then composing, rhymes and such, and then recording it and including it with, these kind of liner notes and things like that. And it's now published through University of Michigan, peer-reviewed. I mean, I've never heard of that happening, and it's amazing. So I'm really glad that came forward, and it's a great listen, by the way, too. I mean, you've got lyrical inclusions here in the actual album itself. You can listen to it right when you're on the page. I should probably put it in the link chat as well, but just thinking about, we've moved to this era where we've acknowledged that written text in connection to sound and other forms could be quite powerful. So A.D. Carson's I Used to Love to Dream, do check that out. It's a fantastic record. Why transcripts? Well, they're often the foundation of multimedia productions. So we're writing scripts, right? We're taking them to the screen. We're taking them to commercial voiceovers we hear on the radio. They're oftentimes included in podcasts. At the same time, you could find a host of free podcasts and videos that do not have transcripts. So they might be distributed and then reliant on sort of audio captions that are posted on YouTube. Certainly this series I'm doing relies somewhat on that, but I have show notes and things like that, and we'll often go back sort of later and correct them. But there's even a podcast I've heard about there. I don't really want to name specifically because it may have changed, but for a long time, you had to actually pay and become a member to get a copy of the transcript. And so you made it inaccessible to public audiences, even though everything else you've done is public. If you're going to go public, it's probably a good idea to include some kind of transcript. It's so often when I teach, I'm having us kind of work with the transcript first, kind of trying to work out that script and then thinking about, what we might add to it along the way. It has its disadvantages, right? Sometimes the sound work can be really organic, but I find just for accessibility purposes, you want to have more often than not a transcript ready to kind of read from and then sort of stem from, if you will. If you just go in cold, you can do a lot of correcting later on for transcript purposes. And so just to reframe, why sound writing then? By hearing the words in audio form, you might have a better sense of the rhyme and flow, or rhythm, I should say, and flow of your written text. So if you're kind of working, again, from a transcript, or you're thinking, I kind of want to turn this essay I've worked on into a podcast or something like that, you're going to realize some things about your sentencing and so forth just by reading it aloud, and maybe realizing it's not the most fitting for a podcast. You may have to finagle the sentences to sound better in audio form, and that could be a powerful revision practice. Okay. Yeah, it's definitely an interesting thing. Yeah, I like the record I think you're referring to. I used to love to dream. I love the fact that it's embedded within the actual, it's almost like a digital CD, if you will. Like, it has that sort of form, that square form of it. But it also tells you like the beats per minute, where the beats came from. I mean, it's great. And the fact that they were able to render it through an academic press and it's usable without really any big issues is also great. Sometimes digital work, sound work, if it's not readily available through, like, let's say, like, Apple Podcasts or something like that, or there's more to it than that, then I think that sometimes it gets in development hell, and it doesn't look like this happened. Okay, so I'll keep that up on the screen as well. So what I want to do for this is be a bit more invitational. Sometimes during these casts, I've had some really great conversations and so forth. I wanted to kind of pivot from that a little bit this week and think more about kind of making. So I'm going to invite you to join along. What we want to do first is to get ourselves ready for a little bit of sound work. What I'm going to have everyone do is start this, what I'm calling a dialectical notebook. And this is taken in away from Anne Bertoff's ideas of the dialectical notebook. It's almost really, honestly, a grid you're kind of making. But what I do in Word or some other program is I'll just make like a 2. Yeah, this should be just enough, I think. Something like this, 2 or 3. Let's see. Yeah, basically 2 grids. And we might say something like transcript and possible sounds. Now this is just a starting point, but if you have, both in front of you, as you're walking through, you can kind of just informally annotate what it is you're thinking about adding to your transcript. So your written text would be on the left, and then possible sounds that you could include with a voiceover. Okay, so let's say we do that. And this is in the description of the video, but what we're going to work from is something I've used in several workshops now. It's about someone immigrating into Canada and taking 10 plus years to actually get citizenship. So this is the piece we'll look at. It's from Ira and Chishabe, and again, it's like those who journey to see becoming a Canadian citizen is a transformation with gains and losses. And so if we just take the first passage from this, all the way from, in December 2007 to being infinitely anxious about the citizenship, I can definitely relate to this in some way, to having just become a permanent resident. What if we paste that into the actual document? Let's check that out. So we're actually getting this whole thing, but I think that's okay. So because we're not in a kind of physical or in-person setting, normally I would invite everyone to kind of read this on their own for a minute just to take in the sense. But I'll just go ahead and read it for accessibility reasons. So, as it says sort of up here, the author is saying, in December 2007, I walked out of the Regina airport for the first time. I took a deep breath, the coldest I'd ever taken, and the air I exhaled formed a patch of white against my black scarf. Magic. My own breath made visible, given weight. I said to myself, always remember this moment. Immigrating to Canada from Uganda and finalizing the process of becoming a citizen this week, which took nearly 12 years, has become a journey of gains and losses. I became a writer of fiction and creative nonfiction during a brief period in 2015 after my work permit expired, effectively terminating my employment as a newspaper journalist. I'd submitted my application for permanent residency months before, but these things take as long as they take. Suddenly, I had more free time on my hands than I knew what to do with, and it made me infinitely anxious. And I'm realizing as I do this, I'm reading with music that's playing on the stream, and maybe that even added a kind of vibe, I mean, it's a background story. There's a lot you can do here. But what are some potential sounds we could include if we were reading that voiceover? Let's say we turned on our phones and we got to work. We read it just as I did. What kind of sounds could we include with it? And I'm doing that on purpose by saying sounds. I haven't said other forms of sound. What do we think? Possible ideas. Looking for those key words, right? We might put airport runway. Lo-fi music, Dia suggesting. Yes. We could say like, was it snowing at the time? It's December. So we could just say like snowfall or snow crunches if we want to get scene setting. So right there, we've thought about ambient sounds. We've thought about music. I read this and I think, the author, even though she's saying that this whole experience made her infinitely anxious, I don't sense that the voice that would be reading this would seem anxious. It just, it's almost like being in awe or reflective, right? So we might say just like a kind of calm voice reading, something like that. And so you can kind of see having like a mix of even 4 sounds. You have to go through this and sort of try to line up each of them. So you could sort of, what I'll sometimes do is after I've mapped this out, I could do something like this as well. You can do this in line, certainly, but I find like just spatially it helps me think through this kind of work. So I might say like calm voice reading. Oh, need to change that a little bit. And then we could say like right in line. And then we could do lo-fi music fades in. So it's almost like script writing, right? What is it you're trying to do is to set the tone. So we got, maybe we could start with airport runway music sort of fading out. It's quickly. So we've got this lo-fi music playing already. We can just start it in the backgrounds. Exhale sounds he's suggesting. A lot of times you see this being put in brackets to say that there's going to be a difference. Maybe we can end with a different sound. New background music. Now this is kind of a plan, right, that you get. Like you've read the script, you've read through it once or twice, you get a feel for it, and then you want to see what you can add. And you know, this is again, if it's just like your first time doing a lot of this, just realize it's gonna change, right? There's like a lot you can do, but if you're trying to do it for like an assignment, a kind of presentation, you know, it's good practice to keep doing it and realize there's some sort of flexibilities that come along the way. Okay, so let's just start with that. That's enough for us to even just work from, for sure. I mean, I'm recording a book right now, and I just have to say, like, several takes are necessary every time I do it. It's incredible how much time I spend crafting the story and reshaping it after I've written all of it out. And again, that's that kind of back and forth, and it's really interesting too. Just you're kind of revising yourself rather than working with revisions that are sort of asked by, let's say, like a teacher or something like that. So again, I find it super helpful for my own practice just to record what it is I'm saying. Okay, so let's assume we've got that. We've got our notebook, our kind of plan. You know, this is lately getting in the area of scripting and so forth. What do we do next in response to it? Well, what we'll do is kind of start preparing our files. So a couple things are at stake here. Let's say you've written this out. Maybe you've got a good sense of where it is, you know, what it is you want to say and what ideas you have. So first you actually need to read this entire passage, right? So there are a couple options you can think about. Most of us are still at home, right? It's hard to find a place to maybe get some privacy. Sometimes it's even harder to record in a place that's conducive to sound. But even still, for the most part, phones now are very good about isolating vocal recordings. So particularly like on, let's see, iOS, voice memo is really, really good for that. Might not give you the best sound, but it's still something better than recording from your computer speakers. You can do that as well. You probably have to do a little more editing. So, you know, for me, I'm using the voice memo that's baked into the phone. You know, pretty straightforward, pretty easy to use. I think Android also has audio recorders that are free. A number of my students have used those too. Students in my classes have used those. I don't think you're going to have any issues doing it. I mean, yeah, like a quick search will find you some kind of recording program that you have. So sometimes just holding it up closer to, you know, your mouth while you're recording can be pretty effective for isolating like background sounds. I don't know if you can hear those for me. I mean, I'm using more of a podcast mic, so it's easier, but like I've got a blank wall right behind me and I'm kind of in a more spatial room. So I got to be a little cognizant of that as well. But there are a couple quick hacks, and sometimes that's what this whole series is about, are doing things that are pretty efficient to explore what you can do with multimodal affordances and available means of persuasion. So because we're kind of getting into jacket season, I do have another quick hack that I can tell you about as well. Give me just 1 second. So if you don't have a mic like this, or and you have a phone at least, what you can do is you can actually put, most jackets on, hoodies, things like that. And this is something that like reporters use at CBC. They use with NPR while they're like at the White House lawn. What they'll do is they'll take their phone or microphone and they'll actually record it just like this, right underneath. And what you notice is when you do this, it's hard for me to convey now, like on the cast. You just have to trust me on this advice. If you actually record it just like this, you'll capture a lot of the voice and exclude all of those ambient sounds. So anytime, like, let's say the fridge is running upstairs, a lot of people are talking, you can mute a lot of that by using your jacket. So again, just kind of like this, speaking into it might be pretty effective, right? Especially as it gets colder, if you're using thicker jackets, that's also a good method. Another method is to record in something like your closet. So one of your closets might have a number of coats, or let's say like a lot of hangers and so forth. If you can go into a smaller one that's padded with a number of hooks and hangers and so forth, that's also a very effective method. So I'll link in the show notes to some other resources you can use, but there's even a reporter, Lulu Miller, who calls it radio's best kept secret. If I show it on YouTube now, it will probably get a copyright claim, unfortunately, but I can tell you just offhand that it's a fantastic video, again, called radio's best kept secret, and it's about people who make pillow forts, blanket forts, recording closets under their jackets to get that optimal radio sound. Just a quick overview how you can do that. But at the very least, there's nothing wrong with just literally sitting on your couch, having your headphones on, and taking a pass at this before you start doing it. Okay, so let's say we've done that. What do we do? Talked about in a second. I just want to look at the chat. So Dia's asking, are you incorporating sound in your book? Yes. So the idea is, for the book I'm working on, every chapter is written sort of in textual form, like a traditional argument, but it's accentuated with voiceovers in every chapter. So what you see on the page is what you'll hear in the sound files. And the idea is to make it accessible to be read or to be listened to, let's say, while you're on the TTC. So I'm trying to sort of incorporate both. Okay. So we've reached this point. Now, I'll put this in the link in the chat as well for everybody. But what we're going to move to is the assumption that we've recorded the files already. So I had a student who's in previous classes with me and also was a research assistant with me actually record a sample of this audio a little while back. And, it was a quick reading. It was on a microphone that I sort of gave her. And so let's just say we've already done that. Let's just see what it sounds like.
In December 2007, I walked out of the Regina.
Oh, it's quiet. I don't know why that is. Maybe we can do, it might be because my headphones aren't turned up that much. Let me see if I can get that a little louder. It's probably hard to hear. Go turn this guy up a little bit.
The coldest I've ever taken. And the air I exhaled formed a patch of white against my black scarf. Magic. My own breath made visible, given weight. I said to myself, always remember this moment. Immigrating to Canada from Uganda and finalizing my process of becoming.
Let's just start over one more time. It sounds a little bit better. It looks like it's picking up for the most part, but again, it's linked in the description, so check it out. Otherwise, if you need to. Okay.
In December 2007, I walked out of the Regina airport for my first time. I took a deep breath, the coldest I've ever taken, and the air I exhaled formed a patch of white against my black scarf. Magic. My own breath made visible, given weight. I said to myself, always remember this moment. Immigrating to Canada from Uganda and finalizing my process of becoming a citizen this week, which took nearly 12 years, has been a journey of gains and losses. I became a writer of fiction and creative nonfiction during a brief period in 2015 after my work permit expired, effectively terminating my employment as newspaper journalist. I'd submitted my application for a permanent residency months before, but these things take as long as they take. Suddenly, I had more free time on my hands than I knew what to do with, and it made me infinitely anxious.
So she went on a little longer there, but we're just going to say, let's keep that part because I think it's useful to think about how to edit that stuff out. Okay, so we have that file recorded. We're feeling maybe like a little bit. We're feeling pretty good about it. It's a good take. We can do some things with that. So what we're going to do next is, I think I may switch this up a little bit. In the description, I have the thing switched up where. Yeah, no, actually we can do this. So we're preparing our files. We're at 0.5 now here. If you're following along also in the show description. So we've got the recording. We've already planned out our sounds. So what I'll have everybody go to is freesound.org. And since this is, again, just a demonstration, I think that you should feel welcome to kind of look at this later on and sign up by yourself. I think that it's really useful to get this anyways because it's totally free. All of these sounds are under a Creative Commons license, and if I had more time, I would talk to you about Creative Commons a little more fully. But do think of it like this. It's basically you can use these as long as you give credit where credit is due. So if you decide to pursue this project a little further down the line, just make sure you're giving credit where credit's due, like linking to anything you use. I often save it at the end of my transcript and then add the citations later on. So that being said, I'm going to log in on my own sort of piece. I would give you the login right now, but what I want to do is, if we were in a more private setting or like in a more public space on campus, I would give you that login. But again, I think it's good to sign up yourself so that you have access to it later. And I just remember what that password is. I think that's what it is. Did I get it the first time? Nope, I didn't. Okay. So let me just change that. Which, if you're looking at this later on the stream or besides live, this might be your chance to sign up. All right, I've located my credentials. So we are G to G. All right. So assuming you've signed up now, or you're just on the page if you're following along live, you can think about ideas. But let's look back at the script we've been working with. So we had a calm voice reading, right, that we can work with, we can edit. Let's think about airport runway sounds. Mute this beautiful music by Hans Heller. Let's check this out. What does this sound like? Might be a bit hard to hear. It's a little low. Let's see, landing sound. Yeah, maybe we need to say something about landing because it's about motion, right? Airplane landing. Ooh, I like that. If you're actually listening to this in headphones as well, like me, you may notice it kind of pans from right to left. Really interesting. So if you're on free sound, what you do is you click on the title, and then later on it will give you a download link, and then the kind of stipulations that are necessary. So if you look here on the right, it'll say the work is licensed under the attribution non-commercial license, which essentially means giving credit where credit's due. And if you're using it for classes, that's even better because you're not making any money off of it. And if you are, it's not advised for you to use it. But usually, you're not making money by taking classes, and for educational purposes, you are usually good to go. So what we do at that point is we will just download this. I'm going to go ahead and make another folder. So I've got like my audio file ready. I'm going to start making sounds. What do I do? We'll just say sound essay. We'll say audio essay sample practice on stream. Yeah, so as long as you know where you're putting all this information, you can access it. That's going to be really good for you. There's nothing more frustrating than downloading a bunch of files and not knowing where to find them when you need to import them, which I'm getting to in just a minute. And my computer always likes to open up everything I download and play it on iTunes. I just need to get that off. Histories. Let's go to this audio sample because we need to download this as well. Direct download. We always like direct downloads. Again, it wants to open up on my ends. Okay, so we have two so far. Airport runway sounds, lo-fi music. Let's just find something that's on free sound that we could also use. Let's just say lo-fi. What's really nice is there's so many different tags that are a part of this database, if you will, that it's pretty easy to find something that's fitting with a tone or genre you're looking for. So that sounds very much like the ones we listen to on this stream. Not too bad. So let's just check out this one for. That one's like slightly more contemplative. That's kind of cool too. I don't know. Lo-fi guitar sounds. So we'll just run with that for now. We can kind of loop it a couple times. And I did forget. I want to keep track of all those links. So I'll just kind of do this real quick. Go back to which one was it? Landing airplane. That's what we used. Yep. Okay. And I want to do one more. I think I actually might pick. I picked a second one too. Lo-fi. And it's like it's what I absolutely love about doing kind of sound work is like just the pre-planning, just to like explore all kinds of different like possibilities, like, and even sometimes if I'm just trying to think about the life of my essay, like the tone, I'll just put some music on in the background and read it and just see what kind of energy I come away with. So we'll just relaxing lo-fi. It's a reflective kind of story. It's one of success after a lot of hard work from the author. So yeah, we can always sort of work with that. So let's go with this. We'll go lo-fi relaxing. We'll add this here. And then the last one we want to put is... Huh. I don't know what that was. Interesting. And one more. We'll go with snowfall. Snow crunch. Footsteps crunching. Something like that. Someone's got to have something like that. Snow crunching under feet. I think I've even used that before. Okay. And we've got that there. Again, just trying to explore the options we have. Okay. Well, listen, that maybe not the best one. Let's see if we can kind of change this up a little bit. Me walking in very crunchy snow. We want that effect a little bit, right? Let's see what we can do. Just trying to find that perfect one, but maybe not a big deal. Yeah, I think that one maybe it's a bit better. We can probably turn it up, and mix it a little bit. And notice, like, we haven't even gone into moving things into the editing suite, which is also really fun. But again, just the kind of exploration is what we want to be thinking about for this particular show. All right, so let's say we've got all of that ready to go. What is it that we do next? And I'm just going to keep going because, I've got roughly like 10, 15 minutes left in this part. And yeah, I just want to make sure I've got giving you all the information you might need. So you've got your files, linked up. You're thinking about getting them ready to go. What I'm going to turn your attention to is this program called a Soundtrap. Now, if you've taken courses in the writing department, you probably know that we oftentimes try to encourage people to use one of two things, either Audacity, which is like a free program for podcasting. Certainly, if you've taken Dr. Bell's classes, you may have done that before. Audacity is a great resource. However, you have to do a little bit of finagling to get it ready, and it's mainly just for some of the main platforms like Windows, Mac, PC. If we have more time, I would show you that sort of stuff, but I think for the most part, we're going to be looking at something you can do on the web. So there's Audacity, there's also Adobe Audition, there's a bunch of other resources you can use. GarageBand, if you're on iOS, you can use that as well. But Soundtrap is a little more accessible in the sense that it's on the web only, and it does a lot of the work that these programs use. So you have to sign in. Again, like I'm going to do this live and also try to remember my actual account number and so forth. So you have to do that in order to sign up for it. It's free. It has some limitations, so just be kind of aware of that. You can also do a subscription, but for the purpose of this, we're just looking at, the free, easy to use kind of version. So let's sign up for that. Let's kick the music back on a touch while we wait. Maybe you have questions right now while I'm doing this, getting this stuff ready. Okay, so it's asking me about, sort of signing up for this free trial and so forth. Again, like if you're just doing this for a class, you're trying to explore what it's like to work with sound, you can probably just use the free plan. And so when you sign up, it'll show you something like sort of overview of your projects and so forth. And then it allows you to do something called Enter Studio. If you have any experience with GarageBand, or maybe you've used Audacity or something like that, you'll notice it's pretty similar. You've got your tracks on the left, your main kind of timeline here on the right and in the center, and then what you're going to do from there is add files, right? So let's just say we kind of add like different tracks. I'm going to add a vocal track. So once you click on add new track, you'll simply click on import file, and then it'll start showing you, things that you've, a folder, documents, things like that. So it just intuitively showed me the folder I recently created, but you may have to do some finagling on your end to find this. Let's just work with the sample that we have, the sample audio. And we can listen back to it. I've got them. Make sure I've got this turned up so you can hear it as well as I can. Go ahead and play it.
In December 2007, I walked out
So
of the Regina airport.
even on my end, it's a little low.
I took a deep breath. The cold
I'm not sure if you can hear it on there, but so we may just have to turn this volume up slightly.
I exhaled, formed a patch of white against my black scarf. Magic. My own breath. In December 2007, I walked out of the Regina airport for my first time. I took a deep breath, the coldest I've ever taken. And the air I exhaled formed a patch of white against my black scarf. Magic. My own breath made visible, given weight. I said to myself, always remember this moment. Immigrating to Canada from Uganda and finalizing my in December.
So it's a little quiet, right? But I think that we can still work with it. There's a lot we can do to, raise it up a bit more, things like that. You can do things like transform the pitch. You can make it darker, lighter. Lots of possibilities for that part. Okay, so we'll go to a new track and we'll start importing some more things. And I wonder if we can actually just do all of these. We might be able to. Let's just see what that does. That's not something I've considered. Oh, it actually makes all of them. Okay, cool. So what we'll do maybe is start with some snow crunching, and then we'll fade in. Now, what's nice with this is when you're working in Soundtrap, you can easily fade in and fade out. The top left of each file has that sort of feature. And I think that's relatively new. I don't remember seeing that in past iterations of this. So let's just kind of go through. Let's see the first couple seconds of what this sounds like with it fading in. We've got some snow sounds in the background. Maybe we'll just have them sort of overlap together just to see. What I might do too is sort of take this guitar sound. Do we want to put it here? And what's nice is you can see the visualization of it, so it's easy to decide where it is exactly you want to put it. Also, too, you can adjust the actual sound file by just dragging on the left and right. So I only want the big airplane sound of it moving. I'm going to have it fade in, and then I'm going to have it slowly fade out once she starts speaking. Again, a little bit of adjusting, we're starting with the transcript up top. That's our priority. And then we're moving by adding more layers, and you can see it all on this interface. All right, so we got to do a little bit of mixing there. They're talking about walking in the snow, so we should probably just kind of overlap these two. Do we start with the music? Let's see.
Regina Airport for my.
So again, I'm kind of thinking about delivery and timing, right? Do I want to keep adding this? Could maybe let that fade in a little bit more.
In December 2007, I walked out of the Regina Airport for my first time. I took a deep breath, the coldest I've ever taken, and the air I exhaled formed a patch of white against my black scarf. Magic. My own breath made visible, given weight. I said to myself, always remember this moment. Immigrating to Canada from Uganda and finalizing my process of becoming a citizen this week, which took nearly 12 years, has been a journey of gains and losses. I became a writer of fiction and creative nonfiction during a brief period in 2015 after.
So you can see there's a little bit of mixing at stake here, just trying to make sure that audio file matches up, sounds a bit more, a bit louder. And that's probably just a symptom of the actual recording. So, once you start listening to this and seeing how these other sounds are mixed, you might say, oh, I've got to go back and redo this to be a bit louder. And you can just see that merely by looking at the visuals of the sound waves. Notice that this is louder generally than the waves you see up at the top. And that's okay. Sometimes it's easy just to mix by turning the volume down on one versus the other, while turning this up. And in, I guess, more robust programs, it's pretty easy to do that as well, and to do the mixing to amplify the sound. But let's just have another quick listen to this.
In December 2007, I walked out of the Regina airport for my first time. I took a deep breath, the coldest I've ever taken. And the air I exhaled formed a patch of white against my black scarf. Magic. My own breath made visible, given weight. I said to myself, always remember this moment. Immigrating to Canada from Uganda and finalizing my process of becoming a citizen this week, which took nearly 12 years, has been a journey of gains and losses. I became a writer of fiction and creative nonfiction during a brief period in 2015 after my work permit expired, effectively terminating my employment as newspaper journalist. I'd submitted my application for a permanent residency months before, but these things take as long as they take. Suddenly, I had more free time on my hands than I knew what to do with, and it made me...
Yeah, and so a little bit of a start. We want to have that introduction. We want to have a way of setting the tone. So again, like more finagling you can do, and kind of editing later on. So a couple other quick things. I want to listen to this part when the author actually sort of fumbles a little bit. There's ways you can correct that.
In December 2007, I walked out of the Regina airport for my first time. I took a deep breath, the coldest I've ever taken.
Okay, so let's just say we've got that line. We're going to isolate this by putting it as a solo track, which is the button on the top left. And then we'll kind of dial into that part. Let me just go back here. And then what we're going to do is we can start kind of editing parts of it by dragging across. So once you find that piece, you could kind of do, it's a little challenging, but I think we can get there.
Out of the Regina airport for my first time. I took a deep breath, the coldest I've ever...
So
The cold...
right there.
The cold...
Okay, so we just kind of do that, and then we can go split region.
The coldest I've...
Might zoom in a little bit more, make sure we got that right.
Coldest I've... The coldest I've...
So if you click Control and then Split, it's pretty easy at that point to move around.
The coldest I've ever...
Did I get it? I almost got it.
Breath, the coldest I've ever taken.
I mean, that sounds a little bit more natural.
The coldest I've...
The coldest
I've ever taken. Coldest I've ever taken. Coldest I've ever taken.
Okay, so we need to take that part out. I think we're going to Control, click, and go there. And then drag it over. Let's see what it sounds like.
The coldest I've ever taken.
All right, then.
Took a deep breath, the coldest I've ever taken. And the air...
Okay, so yeah, split region, that's the one way you can get rid of those files. But generally, for first passes, when you start to read these, you start to think about preparing your files. I always recommend, again, if you're kind of new to sort of the editing programs, sometimes you just want to record very small paragraphs one at a time. So don't try to read the entire thing. In this case, what I had asked the author to do was just read it straightforward without any sort of preparation and pauses, and you can kind of see what happens when you do that. You're running the risk of doing a little bit more editing. But if you do a couple takes, do 2 or 3 takes, and then pick the best one, it might make that editing process a little more efficient. So again, Soundtrap, to Dia's point, referencing DaVinci Resolve for audio editing, sounds amazing. She's saying it's pretty robust. You have to download the free software and your computer to use it. So let's see, DaVinci Resolve 17. Looks like it's pretty great. I have not had much experience with that. I've been wanting to use that. I just haven't taken that step. So sounds super cool. So I want to end with a couple things for you to think about. We have this document we've worked from. We've prepared media files. We've gotten there. A couple things to end with. There's a lot more you can do, first of all, but at the base of this is just thinking about how to use sound and think about varying ways you can use it. If you're looking for more resources, there are 2 things I want to point out to you. On multimodality and creative uses and ways of delivering things in very interesting ways. Do check out Dr. Bell's series on citation practices. And what I love about this is they're mixing video and sound and presentation sort of screens and ideas to tell a really persuasive story and to also offer some really practical tips and worksheets and advice for teachers and others. So they also do a good job of incorporating like Creative Commons music. Kevin MacLeod is very popular in that sense. So well done to them. But just so you can kind of hear this introduction, just think about the vibe that kind of comes with this, as opposed to just putting it on a blog post or something like that, or like a sort of written one sheet. Definitely funky. I like it.
Hi, I'm Brian.
And I'm Stephanie. Do you ever feel like you have to cite every sentence in your paper?
Let's talk about that.
So there are a few reasons why you might feel this way. For one, you might find that you're using an inappropriate citation strategy.
And what's also amazing is they do this remotely. So they're recording it separately, scripting it, and getting it ready for this sort of presentation mode. So just a shout out to this really cool program or series that they're offering on citation practices. So that's linked in the show notes as well. And then lastly, if you're looking to just kind of think more about voice and conversations and things like that, you want to practice sort of your writing, you want to talk about sort of writing and cultural issues with peers, especially if you're an English second language learner or additional language learner. Do check out the ESL Cafe that's offered through the ESL Open Learning Center. So they have a number of sort of sessions and themed classes that you can sign up for. It might be about sort of just various conversations, academic debates, listening, and discussing. So again, this is all kind of figured into sound, right? Like what kind of words do we want to practice? What kind of discussions do we want to have in English? What does that all sound like? Just keep kind of asking yourself that. This is a great resource as well. And yeah, much more to say about sound, I think, for a lot of folks, but I think we'll end it at that point. So that's all I have for this week's stream. Thanks for hanging out as well. And yeah, I'm looking forward to next week. Like I said, we've got something coming up next week on writing with video and mobile technologies. Self-care in the writing process after that. Moving writing from the page to the web. And then cozy vibes and winter writing prompts to follow. So hope to see you then. And until next time, talk to you soon.